Okay, we're set.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? We'll wait a couple of minutes to get some more folks on. All right. I said minutes, but I meant seconds because it's 9 o'clock and we need to start. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us again to discuss how things are going this year. It could not be more exciting. We continue to have new developments. And so part of our meeting today, we'll be talking through some logistical things that we're working out. I want to give time for folks to just kind of ask questions or make any comments or suggestions that they would like. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end about what's coming for us, what some of our next steps are, what are some of the things that we're anticipating in the future. So with that, if there's anything that anyone wants to add to that agenda or things that you'd like to make sure we discuss today, please go ahead and unmute and let me know. Okay, it sounds like that agenda is going to be okay for us today. Remember, if you need to, or you feel like you want to stop us at any point to add something, please go ahead and unmute and just do that. So as you know, we are back. We have our students back with us. They've been with us since the 19th. And aside from one little inclement e-learning / remote day, we have been going strong with our return to learn plan. In hybrid with the additional students that opted in October, I think, for trimester 2. So we're so happy to have everyone back and to be back up and running with students in the building. It doesn't mean it's without challenge. We have definitely encountered some challenges. And so I'd like to spend some time today with this group talking through some of those pieces. We've definitely gotten some feedback and had some questions around certain things. A couple of the things I'll address here, and then I will open up also for our administrators to make comments on. I want to emphasize to this group too that we will talk later about educator vaccinations and kind of where we are with that, but I just want to emphasize that nothing has changed for us in terms of the guidance that we need to follow to make sure everyone stays safe and healthy. And the reason that I reiterate that is that our nurses are on the call today, and I know that they have been inundated with a lot of questions and a lot of work around what it means to be able to be in school right now. There are a lot of things that we have to do procedurally that are important for us to keep everyone safe. And it requires a lot of follow through and follow up and documentation. And it's added a lot to our nurses' plates. So as you know, we have 3 nurses now. Nurse Doro is back at elementary, and we have had Nurse Murray stay on with us to help with that increased workload. But I just want to acknowledge that although things seem to be, going better in terms of finding out when vaccinations are coming, et cetera, we are still under the same guidance and procedures. So we just ask for everyone's patience with us on that. Additionally, we've had some questions about why we are maybe following the guidance. We continue to get the question about it's not law, the health department guidance. So do we have to follow all of it? Do we have to do all those things? And the short answer is not legally, no. But at the same time, our health department is giving us recommendations to make sure that everyone's safe. And so we would want to do that for everyone who is in our building for as long as we felt like we needed to. And so that's the short answer to that question. The guidance is pretty well accepted right now that these are the things that keep people safe. The CDC put out some information this week regarding minimal transmission of COVID-19 in school settings, which is great news. What they did emphasize, though, is that that is with mitigations in place. Mask wearing and implementing those mitigations with fidelity really, really helps. So that is why we will be sticking with those pieces. And then the other question I want to address before we get to our building related questions is just kind of why we're still doing remote as the common platform between the two groups of students, the ones who are remote at school and remote at home. And just really quickly, I addressed this at the board meeting, but I think it's worth repeating. We really, from the beginning, wanted a system that was pretty seamless for our students, because what we have experienced, what we were anticipating, and what we have been experiencing is a lot of in and out with our students and teachers due to quarantine, close contacts at home, sickness, symptoms. There's just a lot that goes into running a school right now. And for teachers and for students, having that common schedule, common platform has been really, really helpful in lessening the disruption between moving in and out of school. Obviously, for some of us, it's happened individually. Obviously, for us as a system, we've had to shift. And so that's been helpful. We know for kids, routine matters. We might not, as adults, think that it does because it feels boring. But for kids, it really matters in keeping things normal and keeping routines going and knowing what to anticipate. So we know that about our kids, and we want to make sure that we provide that support. Now, does that mean that we anticipate this will be the framework for as long as we can see into the foreseeable future? No, we continue to look at the right ways to do things and to adjust to meet the needs of our kids. For right now, though, we feel that this platform is providing a stability and a routine for our staff and students that we think is really important. And with that, unless there are any questions or comments on that information, which I'll give a second for. Okay, then with that, we're going to move to some building specific items that I want to give us a chance to discuss as a team. So obviously we have more kids back than we've had, which is great. We also know that we have some capacity issues on our buses. And so we have always and had continued to encourage folks to drive their students. And that is creating some backing up and some issues around arrival and dismissal at elementary in particular. So I wanted to give us a chance to hear from Ms. Bay and Ms. Jurov what problem solving has been done already around arrival and dismissal at LBES, and then to open it up for some thoughts or questions about what we might be able to do in the future. But I did want to give them an opportunity to begin by talking through some of the problem solving that they've been doing around this situation.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you. I want to formally recognize that dismissal is and continues to be a challenge for us at LBES. It really has been a little bit clunky all year, mostly because we know there are so many additional vehicles that are coming through the pickup lane. Not only that, we have students who are so used to getting on the bus and following that protocol. It's new to listen for your name and watch for your car and stay distanced and wear a mask and be all bundled and do all those things. And so a couple of things that we are working towards. Number one, the goal for us is to keep the flow. We know that we've got to keep the traffic moving so that we can maintain safety. And that is really the biggest piece right now that we're thinking through. So not only how do we keep our students safe that are on our property, how do we keep parents safe that are driving? And then how do we keep any other community members or people in vehicles that are passing through, how do we keep them safe? Because the more the traffic is building up on Green Bay Road, the more risk we have. And with snowy and icy weather, it brings a whole nother layer. So a couple of things that we're working on are all of our staff really is ready and outside and watching and listening for names so that we can get kids up to our loading zone in a timely way. We are, our official dismissal time is 2:50, and we have found that we cannot have kids just coming out the door at 2:50 with the way that the traffic is backing up. So all of the teachers are out on the front by 2:45 with their classes, and we are beginning to call the first 4 names so that students can approach the colored cone that is going to correspond to their parent's vehicle. So listening, awareness, being ready. We also have name cards that we are helping parents to have on the dashboard of their vehicle. So if we can have those name tags visible, it's easier for us to be able to call the name and get the child where they need to be. We've sent a school messenger out, so any families that don't have a name card, we're happy to make one for them. There's a Google form link in that email. We also have what we're calling our buckle zone. So a couple of things that we are noticing that can slow down the flow are for our youngest learners. As they get in the vehicle, they are not all able to buckle themselves yet, or they're in a type of seat that they need some assistance. And so to maintain safety and to keep the flow, we have those cars pulling up into spots that they can sort of pull a lot over to the side, get their child seated safely, and then pull back out again. That space is also helpful for vehicles where the child is unable to get in on the right side. We don't want students walking around their car and getting in on the left. Number one, that is dangerous. And number two, it slows things down. And so we have reminded our parents that have been in person and our new families of that buckle zone. We have a bright green card so that our team knows who needs to be pulling up in that space. We're also using that space for if we have a straggler or a child that isn't out of the building yet, we need to get cars out of the way so that we can keep loading. Another piece that we are working on is just, we'll call those first four names, and then we'll call the second round so that we've got kids that are sort of on deck or waiting, so that we're not having to stall and slow down things as kids are coming up to their cone. This morning, Mrs. Jarava and I went out there and added 3 more colored cones. So we currently have 4 out there. We're going to try 7 loading zone spots today. And it takes faculty members opening up car doors, helping to keep cars moving. So we're hoping that additional loading zone points will help. We're also working with our maintenance team that is out not only doing crossing duty, but there is an element of some traffic control there. So a little bit of directing traffic that's happening so that we can try to keep the cars coming on our property. I feel like I'm talking about this a lot, but I have definitely spent many hours. I've been on the phone with our police department, kind of brainstorming different ways that we can try to get more vehicles on the property. I am very open to ideas, suggestions. I think that, we really hope that this is a one-year problem, that next year we'll be able to have more students on our buses, and we can really not have to be in the same kind of predicament. I will say, I think it's important, and that even though we recognize, and I fully believe that we've got to try to do something different, tweaking our existing protocols versus a complete overhaul is really kind of the direction that I think is going to be most effective, mostly because change is hard. There's so many things that our families are reading and processing, and anytime you try to adjust a protocol, it does take some time and adjustment. So we've had a few different things mentioned. What if we had cars kind of weave through our parking lot to get more onto the space and off of Green Bay Road? I think there's some pluses and minuses to that in terms of safety within the parking lot, cars not being able to pull out, oversized vehicles needing to make some pretty tight turns. We have our bus loop that buses are in now, and there's been some idea of maybe that is also a pickup lane, and how could we get cars coming through that lane? So we are definitely thinking about it. And I think awareness is really important on our team side, for our staff to just be listening and ready and getting students to their vehicles quickly, but open to suggestions. Audrey, do you want to add anything to that? You've been really helpful and thoughtful in this protocol and process since day one.
Yeah, it's definitely a team effort, and Kelly and I have been collaborating with everybody involved in the process of getting our students out safely. One observation that we're noticing too is that cars are lining up as early as 2 o'clock. So by the time 2:30 comes, we already have a line that's going back to the intersection of 176 and Green Bay. So, if we could have parents come a little bit closer to that pickup time and not have already a backup before we even start, the thought is that we could then have, keep the flow. We'll be able to just flow instead of already starting stopped and backed up as early as like 2 o'clock. So that's definitely important.
I also wanted to add that we do have some limited space on some of our bus routes, and we're looking at adding, right, people have requested to have their kids added to the bus, and we're trying to accommodate that as space permits. We needed to take a little break because the requests were coming fast and furious, and we kept making changes, and every time you change something, it just disrupts everything. So we're looking in the next couple of weeks to add a few more kids to the bus where we can do it safely. And I'm also looking at potentially hiring a police officer temporarily for traffic direction at some of the congested intersections.
Okay, thanks for all of that information. We do want to open it up in case there are any questions or thoughts. Carrie?
I had a couple of thoughts, which I've shared already. It is obnoxious that people line up at 2 o'clock. I'm not understanding why they do that, but it does cause traffic for a good hour until people like me come and get my kids. So I don't know how to stop that unless maybe perhaps we just tell people they're not allowed, or we close the parking lot until a certain time for them to come. A couple people have suggested things such as early dismissal, not early dismissal, but a few minutes early for the bus kids so that the bus lane could open up, and then we split the families into last names so that we can have 2 flows. And then I know that we have a lot of young kids, but there's also a good amount of kids that are pretty capable of getting in the car and might not need the help. And so if they could walk to the park district and we could pick them up there, that would be super helpful. Then they're not crossing Green Bay Road. Then they're not, because a lot of people park over in the community over there. So just a couple of things, if the park district would let us have a little overflow, even in the mornings, they could walk from there as well, because there's safe sidewalks, there's crosswalks and everything. So it wouldn't take too much. And then I do know a lot of people are frustrated enough, they might be able to volunteer their time to help if you needed it. And if there's room on my bus route, I'll take it.
Thanks, Carrie.
I know you've already mentioned this, Kelly, but a model, if you wanted to go and observe the primary grade center at St. Mary's, they have a very efficient pickup process that I experienced when my kids were young, and it might be just something to observe. And in that model, they're using more of a parking lot space, as you mentioned, and I do realize the corners and things, but if again, maybe piggybacking on the park district, could be the teachers park there, as they're probably the safest individuals to walk a relatively short distance and then be able to utilize the full parking lot. The pickup zone could then be the buckle zone could then be in those spots as you exit the elementary parking lot. And then you're maximizing all the space in the parking lot area. That was the brainstorm to which the extent that I've had, but I know you're looking at all different things. So thank you for doing that.
One thing we forgot to mention though, is that when we first started back, we cleared everybody here at the elementary at about 3:18 on our first day back. And then we've been able to shave off a lot of time. I think yesterday or the day before we were at 2:58, having cleared the building. So, as much as we do think about these larger changes, change is hard for people. And so I think the idea was we settled on trying to just tweak what we already have and make some of these smaller adjustments to do that, because we're already going in the right direction of shaving off time. And I think, that's a reasonable time to do that. But we definitely will continue to think and process this through, and we appreciate your help.
So as someone who is by one of the cones every day, one of the problems I notice is just getting the kids to the cones. I find often I'm waiting and looking for them. And So that's slowing things down. So if we can think of ways to even communicate it better to the groups that are out there waiting on the concrete, I think that would help things go.
I appreciate you sharing that, Jeremy. I think Kelly and I, we processed through that. There's two things. One, kids need to identify their cars and come out looking for their cars so that they're, oh, that's my mom, or that's who's picking me up. And then our staff need to be very proactive in ushering those kids out, getting them up to that. I mean, it's hard to know who's who with the masks on, but that's why we've asked our staff who are responsible for those kids and know them to get them out. We also adjusted having siblings pile together as soon as they come out so that everybody's there and ready to go when the name is called. So we definitely have some work to do on that end from our staff and getting them to really help get these kids up and there. So it's definitely going to be a team effort on everybody's end. So thanks for sharing that, Jeremy.
To that effect, I don't recall, are there any type of like walkie-talkie system so that a person is way up in front? Do you guys use those already?
We do. We have somebody on the front line calling ahead, Mr. Anderco, who calls to Kelly Bay, who then makes that announcement. And then we also have two walkies on the concrete where the kids are, also with our specialists who see all the kids and have the best chance of knowing more children than the classroom teachers. So we are effectively using that. So
great. Thank you.
These are good ideas. Good opportunity to share too. Anything else on this? I would say the best way to help too is to just keep encouraging folks to stay alert in the parking lot and in the lines. I think we all can sometimes get distracted, and so staying alert during that process is really important. And just encouraging folks to, pay attention as much as possible to what's happening during arrival and dismissal. Sometimes things just get slowed down that way. We appreciate your thoughts and questions about that. Is there anything else logistically that anyone wants to question or ask about?
I just had one comment because spring is kind of around the corner and we would love for the kids to like walk or ride their bikes more often. And I'm sure I'm annoying you with my request, but their backpacks are just way too heavy. Since we are remote, Chromebooks should really be the only thing. And is there any way we can leave some stuff at school? I know, like, personally, I have to drive their backpacks to school, which defeats the purpose of putting them on their bikes and things like that. And I'm not the only one. So it's just put it out there and hopefully something can make a difference.
No,
I appreciate you saying that, Carrie. As Kelly and I have been out there unloading kids and loading them, we also are noticing very heavy backpacks. So we are going to be working with our teachers and staff to try to eliminate that. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yep, it's an agenda item for our team rep meeting on February 3rd. So I can talk with each of the grade level representatives to identify this challenge and problem and come up with some solutions. Because I want kids to ride their bikes because that's a fun way to get to school. It's a safe way to get to school and it can reduce the car line. So I thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. We appreciate the questions, helps us to get better.
Kelly, just so you know, I had some requests about that and I've been trying to make adjustments. And one way that I think has kind of helped, it's nothing like really magical or anything, but I gave every kid a book bin at their desk. That I would typically let them have a book bin in class. So they keep like those math kits in there. Just in the event that they do go remote for like, say, a long period of time of a sickness, I'd be happy to set up a pickup, but I felt like them carrying that box home was a lot. I had them keep just a few things. So really trying to minimize like what's the most important, that if they were home with symptoms, because there are other ways to adjust. Like I'm like, okay, if someone leaves their math book, I can create a seesaw version of that for the day. So just maybe being mindful of how we can do that. So giving them like a book bin. I know some teachers have left book bins on top of the cubbies. And then when they come in the morning, they bring that in with them rather than having it all in their backpack. So just an idea if people are thinking of storage or whatnot.
I love it. Thank you so much, Amanda. And I think that in the beginning, it was like, they've got to have all their stuff. And if they go remote, we want to make sure that they're prepared. And I think we're in a good position to make some adjustments there. A majority of our families have supplies at home. And for those that don't, I think putting some energy towards creating a mechanism to get those supplies in their hands is a great idea, and bringing some relief, because a heavy backpack is not helpful.
Okay. For our last few minutes, I just want to give folks an update. As I've communicated, the Lake County Superintendents and Health Department have been coordinating on vaccination pods for our educators and staff. That includes anyone who is interacting with students or adults in our buildings. So we're excited about that. That being said, the 2 vaccination pods at Round Lake High School and Stevenson High School should be opening next week, but we'll be working on vaccinating approximately 20,000 educators in our county, which is a lot of folks. So we know that Lake County's been very organized. They've been very proactive on this. There's a system. We've been reminding our staff to get in there. We have sent out a survey. About 97% of our staff are interested in getting the vaccine, which is great information. There's a few folks with some medical conditions that are a little nervous about that. But we anticipate that this will be happening. We should begin to be able to register for appointments, hopefully this weekend. So we're excited to do that for our teachers and make sure that that goes as smoothly as possible. But we will need to be patient, as we've had to be this whole time, and flexible and adaptable. That's what we're learning. And so again, this group is really, really helpful for us to keep adjusting and to keep making sure that we're doing the best that we can during this really challenging time. I want you to know our administrative team is planning for the future as things evolve. We are looking at different scenarios. We're looking ahead, anticipating what we might be able to do, when we might be able to do it. There's a lot that goes into this, all the way down to what do we send home in the backpacks. And so I do want to acknowledge, these 2 issues that we talked about today are 2 of many, many, many issues that our administrators have problem solved and innovated alongside our teachers and teacher leadership teams. And there are countless issues like this that keep coming up for us. And so I just want to acknowledge the work that goes into that, the problem solving, the different tries, the different ways that we're trying to do things. And this group really helps us just to think outside the box. So again, we appreciate your input. We appreciate you spending time with us and helping us with our planning and implementation. Is there anything that anyone else wants to mention before we adjourn for today?
Real quick question. Will there be any opportunity to resume sports?
Well, we just had an announcement yesterday. IHSA approved high school sports, and so there'll be some more guidance coming out on that. So we will be meeting in the next couple of days to discuss kind of what we might be able to do with our students on that.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that announcement came out yesterday.
Great. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole. Anything else? All right, folks, it's good to see you. As always, if you think of something in between the meetings, email, phone call, let us know what your thoughts are. If you hear feedback, bring it back to us. We'll meet again in 2 weeks. And again, thanks for everything, and we hope you have a great rest of the week.